So let's see why Terrence is voting for Trump. Burger King. You don't know about Burger King?
I don't
There's a tank you. He did a video and it says Burger King weird.
care if there was a line of prostitutes around the block to the White House going up to the back door, sucking his dick through a hole in the screen door. 24/7, 365, when he wasn't on the phone doing his job or playing golf. I don't care.
Diary of a Misanthrope.
Terrence Popp here with another episode of Live from the Lair. So, over the past 3 or 4 months, I have
He doesn't sound as drunk in this one. I'm surprised.
received a lot of emails and comments on my videos in regards to my voting for Trump in the first place and supporting him now. And I've been called a Trump pansy and part of the Trump cult. I'm going to explain that right now. Now, first of all, I have to be honest. I never watched Trump's shows. I thought they were shit. Didn't really care for him much as an individual. He's a billionaire, he's on the news every now and again. But when I heard that he'd actually got the Republican nomination, well, I'm a Republican, so I voted for him. It was only...
I think that's pretty emblematic of a lot of the problems we have in this country, don't you think? Like, what do you mean when you heard he got the Republican nomination? Were you not paying attention to, like, the year and a half preceding that? Were you not paying attention to the debates? Were you not paying attention when Trump, like, made his initial, like, announcement? You just heard, oh, he's the nominee? Okay, I'm voting for him because I'm Republican. This party politics thinking of, well, this is the political party I am. I'm gonna vote for them no matter what. Not good. Not good. And, like, the reason that I'm saying vote for Biden isn't because I'm a Democrat. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a leftist. The reason I think you should vote for Biden has nothing to do with the fact that he's the Democratic candidate. It has to do with the fact that I think that harm reduction is better achieved via voting for him than voting for Trump or voting third party, right? I have actual reasons I can talk about, not just, oh, he has a D next to his name on the ballot. Like, what kind of childishness is this, where you just decide, well, I'm a Republican, that's all the political thinking I ever have to do for the rest of my life? Or the opposite, saying I'm a Democrat, never have to think about the issues or who's running ever again. Dr. Gamble with 200 bits. So is his entire personality that he's the angry town drunk? Because that's stupid. Yeah, that's like his entire persona.
Trump or Hillary? We couldn't survive Hillary, that murdering, backstabbing cunt.
Hey Terrence. How do you think we're doing so far under Trump? Let's look at the U.S. death toll of coronavirus again. U.S. deaths from COVID. Oh goody, we're up to 175,000 with under 6 million confirmed cases. We have record unemployment. We have riots in the streets due to lack of action over police misconduct. But you think Hillary Clinton... Again, I'm not the biggest fan of Hillary Clinton, but she's a competent politician. She knows what she's doing, right? I can't believe any person looked at Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and decided, you know who'll be better at this job? Donald Trump. It's bizarre to me. Dude Spanking Dude says, I won't go to vote for Bernie in person, only to find out I never chose a side in my voter card, so I wouldn't vote for anyone.
Especially with the shit that went down in Benghazi.
Benghazi. Again, I would imagine if you asked Terrence to his face, what exactly happened in Benghazi and why do you think it's Hillary's fault? I guarantee he wouldn't have an answer. It's just something he's heard people say on Fox News.
No individuals who were in the service when that went down, and that could have been avoided. We could have got troops there in, I think, 3.5 hours before the attack even started. And we had a sitting U.S. ambassador murdered on station. And if you read some of the news...
So question. I went to go vote for Bernie, but couldn't because I didn't pick who I was affiliated with. I wanted to vote for Bernie. Yeah, some states you need to be affiliated with a party to vote in the primary. Not my state, though. So since you're so concerned about service members... What about Donald Trump not caring about the fact that Al-Qaeda was putting bounties on U.S. soldiers? Right? Do you not think that's an issue? Do you not think that was a thing that needed to be addressed? And Trump was like, oh, whatever. Or no, was it Russia was offering bounties to Al-Qaeda? Let me look, just to be sure. It's been a couple weeks, and every week this year feels like a goddamn year in and of itself. Russian bounties. The Russian bounty program is an alleged project of Russian military intelligence, specifically Unit 29155 of the GRU, to pay bounties to Taliban-linked militants for killing American and other allied service members in Afghanistan. You upset about that, Terrence? Or no, just the things Fox News tells you to be mad about?
Newspapers that were published after the fact, and especially the one in Egypt, the one in Syria, and I believe one in North Africa, basically stating that he was alive when he was pulled out, and he was tortured and raped, and then killed. Which I tend to believe, because those newspapers in the Middle East really don't have anything to lose. There is no political agenda. They just...
What? Do you think that... And don't get me wrong, I'm not even saying that that's untrue. I have no idea. I've not looked into it. But it's weird to me that his standard is like, I don't know, it's the Middle East and Africa, so they wouldn't lie in their newspapers. Like, what? Why? Why is that your standard? Again, I believe what they're saying if that's what they said, but... Just seems weird that that's the arbitrary reason that you've decided. Do you think the only place with political bias on the planet is America?
Call it as they see it. And of course, we in America, I don't think we could handle that because we have so many snowflakes on station. And it is what it is. Call me a conspiracy theorist, whatever. Don't care. I'm just telling you the facts as they're reported in actual newspapers that had people on the ground reporting. All right, number 2, President Trump, unlike the other presidents we've had, was an actual successful businessman.
Okay, first of all, Trump has bankrupted tons of companies, up to including a casino. I don't know how you bankrupt a casino, but apparently the House doesn't always win. If it's run by Donald Trump, the House loses, I guess.
There's nothing funny about
Secondly,
capitalism.
He inherited a ton of money from his dad. And I've read articles that basically lay it out and say, based on Donald Trump's actual projected net worth, if he had just put all of the money he had gotten from his father into, like, a mutual fund, it would have grown more than his actual endeavors. You ever hear the term failing upward? Donald Trump is that personified. Thirdly, the role of a business person and a politician are entirely antithetical to each other. A business person's job, if you work in the private sector, which you would if you're a business person, is to make a profit, period. Doesn't matter if you provide a good service, doesn't matter if you help people in the process, you just gotta get the numbers going upward, right? Something happened that I missed, sorry. Magnetar707, thank you for the 95 bits. So I had to evacuate from my home in California due to a fire, so now I'm in a hotel waiting to see if I'm homeless. Hope you guys are handling life better than me right now. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's very unfortunate. I'm sorry. I really hope that your house is okay. That would be very sad. Sorry to hear that. What was I saying? Oh, so the goal of a business person is to make a profit, period. The goal of a politician is the opposite. You're not supposed to make a profit for the government. You are supposed to provide services to the people that are your constituents. You are supposed to advocate for policies that help people. You are supposed to ensure that taxes are paid reasonably and fairly for everyone, and then you take those taxes and provide services that are not able to be provided in the public or in the private sector. Like roads, right? Like the police, like firefighters, like public schooling. You don't want to make a profit if you are in the government. You want to provide the best and the most services you possibly can, and your job is also to keep businesses in check with regulations so they don't hurt their consumer base or their employees. If you're a business person, then your beliefs and value systems are antithetical to your role in the government, and you have a conflict of interests where you're going to side with the businesses and private entities over that of the people who voted you into power. You should not ever be like, that person's a successful business person, which Donald Trump isn't, by the way. He's a failed business person with a reality TV show. And then say, well, then they'll be good at doing the government. No. The government's role is entirely different than business, and often they are in conflict with each other. Baja Blast says, Hannah, you cleaning your nails while destroying Trump supporters is throwing some very cute girl who sits in the back of the class and the teacher calls on her because they think she isn't paying attention, but she answers the question correctly vibes. Thank you. It's very specific.
/ billionaire. Now, I know in the media, they were saying, oh, he let his companies go bankrupt and he's really not that good of a businessman.
Correct.
Okay, let's just be honest here. An average millionaire, before he becomes a millionaire, has to declare bankruptcy between 5 and 7 times. That's a really poor track record.
Donald Trump was already a millionaire at that point, though. He already had millions of dollars that had been gifted to him by his father. He wasn't some dirt poor person who built up businesses from the ground up. He already had tons of capital. Even before his dad died, his dad gave him a small loan of $1 million in like the 70s, when $1 million was worth more like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 million dollars today. This was not a guy who built himself up from rags to riches. He's a guy who was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and through his business endeavors has downgraded to a bronze spoon because he's so bad at his job.
And that's just one millionaire. Now, Trump said somewhere between 300 and 425 companies, and I believe anywhere from 10 to 15 of those companies went bankrupt. That's a pretty good track record.
One of them is a casino. One of them was a casino. Can you explain to me how you bankrupt a casino? And all his other investments, by the way, outside of like Trump stakes and stuff, are in property. It's very hard to screw up property, especially in like New York City. He got very lucky. His father was able to get up and buy a bunch of New York property when it was cheap, and then after the 70s and 80s, when New York started to clean itself up, in the mid-80s or so, that property skyrocketed in price. He wasn't some business genius. He was lucky that he already had this property after the property values went up. Jesus.
It's like a 88 to 95% success rate, depending upon what numbers you believe. You know, a lot of these other presidents we had in the past.
Dr. Gamble says, you make sure everyone wins, but the House can count cards, Hannah.
Especially Obama, you know, he didn't do really anything for the economy.
Excuse me? Let's see. Economy under Obama. Unemployment rate fell from 10% to less than 5%. If we're going to talk about stock market, let's say, which I don't like, but people like you tend to point it out. Let's see. Stock market over time. Since 2000, maybe? Here, I'll just do Dow Jones. Dow Jones. Let's do max. Then we have, let's see. So 2008, the financial crisis happened. See this downward? Crashed. And things had been relatively stable and not going up too much between 99 and 2007. There was certainly a raise, but it's pretty flat. Then we had the economic crash. Then, starting in roughly 2009, we had a meteoric rise in stock prices up until 2016. It continues for a while because we're still working off the economy that was built by Obama and this administration. And then what do you know? The stock market crashes again due to Trump's mishandling of the COVID response. And now it's starting to recover again. But I would imagine as unemployment continues to get worse, it'll drop again.
That's right, capitalistic propaganda.
Thank you to Trash Vamp 666 for following. Welcome to the stream. Obama also lowered the government deficit almost every year that he was president. Jobs, millions of them were created during that same time period. The recovery after the recession, things were going well, and then, well, here we are. So, to say that Obama was bad for the economy is just a stupid, uninformed opinion. That's you literally parroting what you've heard someone on Fox News say.
In fact, he said, you know, the 1.2 to 1.5% growth was about all we were ever going to see moving forward, and Trump blew that out of the water. And he did so by getting rid of a bunch.
The way that Trump increased stock price when he got into office was by doing another huge rich person tax cut for companies, and then they did huge stock buybacks, which inflates the market price, for those of you who don't know. Basically, he said, all right, your taxes are lower, billionaire businesses that are already underpaying for taxes. So now, of course, the deficit's raised like every year under Trump. What a shock. Because it turns out if you lower taxes for people who are already underpaying, the deficit's going to explode. Which is hilarious to me, how Republicans are always like, we're fiscally conservative. But if you look at it, under Democrats, the deficit shrinks under Democrats, and it actually gets bigger under Republicans. Because, of course, they always go for tax cuts, and you can't have a balanced budget when people aren't paying taxes. So anyway, these companies have a bunch of extra money because they're being told they don't have to pay all these taxes, you know, to live in a reasonable society. And they go, okay, we're going to do a stock buyback, which means the companies that are public now own more of their own shares, and it inflates the price of those shares. That's why the stock market price went up.
Of regulations that were serving no purpose other than putting, you know, obstacles and barriers in front of people and holding.
We have the highest unemployment rate in the United States right now than we've, like, ever had. The bungled response to COVID-19 has destroyed the economy. And for some reason, the stock market's pretending like everything's okay still, but it's gonna crash, whether that's today, tomorrow, next month, or if they're trying to hold out if Biden wins so they can say, like, oh, look, the stock market crashed when Biden got in. Because, of course, rich people like Donald Trump, because he's gonna not make them pay taxes like they should. So they're gonna try and say, oh, look, Biden getting elected caused a stock market crash. I guess you shouldn't vote for Democrats, plebs. Very stupid.
People back. And number two, he brought down the tax bracket, which was crushing business within the confines.
No, it was not. If you can't afford to pay your taxes and pay your employees a living wage, then guess what? You can't afford to be in business. You don't have the right to own a successful business. If you cannot pay your fair share of taxes and can't pay your employees, then you don't have a successful business model. Period.
Of the United States. Okay, I believe before he did that, we were the number one country in all of the world in regards to our business tax bracket.
Wrong. You're very, very wrong on that. The United States has a relatively very low tax rate for corporations.
Okay, could be wrong on that.
You're very wrong. Why did you make a 20-minute video when you are talking out of your asshole the entire video? I could be wrong on that. Oh, I guess you should have looked it up. Shouldn't you have? Weird. Maybe stop getting your news from Fox and Breitbart.
Please, research it and links, put it in the comments below. Since 1979, he's been the only guy to speak against China.
Okay. What? No, that's also objectively false. Politicians have been talking about the danger posed by China and the outsourcing of American jobs. That's been like a talking point for both sides of the aisle for decades. Are you kidding me? Why is this guy just saying objective lies and expecting people, well, I guess it works out, his dumbass audience was like, yeah, say stupid things. Lie to me, daddy. Genius.
In regards to removing our industries and our jobs, has anyone ever wondered why there's been this uproar for people fighting for the living wage in fast food and other industries, comparable to that?
Because employers are consistently underpaying employees in many, many industries, up to and including service industries like fast food. Old people have this weird view of service industries like McDonald's and stuff, where they're like, oh, that's a job for teenagers. Oh, really? Is McDonald's only open after school hours? Is McDonald's only open all day during the summer? No. I've worked at McDonald's years and years ago before I ended up doing this stuff for a living. Most of the people who worked there and had tons of hours and basically ran the place were adults. They were adults trying to feed their families and barely getting by. And yes, a lot of jobs have disappeared due to outsourcing. That's capitalism. Capital figured out that they could pay politicians to say, hey, let us outsource these jobs, lower or remove tariffs outright, and we'll give you a bunch of campaign donations. So they did so. So a bunch of unskilled factory work did go away. But even if you were to reverse this and increase tariffs, as we've seen Trump try and do, all that happens is A, a trade war, which is not good, and unlike Trump says, are not easy to win. It just hurts the consumer. And B, those jobs aren't coming back and getting people gainfully employed. Do you know why? Because automation continues to rise every single year. And you're not going to get that same job on a factory line that you could get in the 80s or 90s, because that job has been replaced by a robot that does the work of 20 people. And sure, does someone have to come and maintain that robot? Yeah, but they're not an unskilled laborer. They're someone who at the very least had to go to a trade school. This fantasy world Republicans and people on the right have of like, oh, we're just going to raise tariffs and all the jobs are going to come back and it's going to be like the 1950s and you're going to work at the local factory. It's nonsense. It does not exist. That is not a world that will ever exist again. Get over it and figure out a way to move forward. Help people get educated. Universal education, whether it be through college or trade programs, so people can actually learn how to do work outside of unskilled labor. These are necessary things. You cannot move backward. That's not how things work. Dr. Gamble with 20 bits. My echo chamber is the best echo chamber, and I have the biggest echo chamber in the world. The echo chamber is huge. It's a huge echo chamber.
It's because the jobs that provided the living wage in the past are now over in China.
Hey, Terrence, did you know that minimum wage, when it was instituted, was meant to be a living wage? Did you know that? And ever since then, it's been chipped away at, to the point where now you can hold 2 or 3 jobs at minimum wage and still not be able to afford rent. It's almost like business interests in this country really, really want to trample all over labor so they can make their extra $1 billion a year and go buy a yacht or whatever.
Okay, or they're in Mexico. That is the canary in the coal mine right there, that the jobs are gone. You know, starting with Carter all the way up to,
I think you're maybe missing a president. His name was Ronald Reagan, who removed a bunch of regulations on business and helped bust unions. You gonna mention that or no, because you like Ronald Reagan for some reason? Great.
Obama. I believe they have sat back, got a lot of fucking cash.
I believe. What a strong statement. On what are you basing that belief, Terrence? Do you have actual numbers or evidence that there were kickbacks from China? Or is this just something that you feel? Are your fifis tingling? Oh, I don't like Obama, so I have fifis that he did a treason. Well, that and a nickel, and you have 5 cents. Worthless opinion.
To allow this to continue to
Oh,
go
yeah, Reagan did come after Carter. Sorry, I was thinking of Nixon. Nixon also. Bad guy. My bad.
on, to include the representatives and the senators of this great country. I find it hard to believe why we aren't doing
Actually, before Carter was technically Ford, but he was filling in because Nixon resigned.
flips. Why a senator shows up, he has fuck all in the bank, he only gets $174,000 a year to live in Washington, D.C.
Most politicians in this country are independently wealthy.
And 10 or 20 years later, when he says I'm packing it in, he has $50 to $150 million. That is bullshit. And that speaks to the level of corruption, and I'm using the hard corruption word here, that is pervasive within our government, to include the appointees who weren't even voted in there. They're doing some crazy ass shit, but that's another video.
There are tons of people in the government who are appointed. That's not inherently corrupt. You cannot elect every single job position in the government, you idiot. The ballot would be 30 pages long and no one would have any idea what these job titles are for.
Now, has anyone ever wondered why the Rust Belt exists? It boggles my mind why people aren't flipping out. We can actually dig up iron ore here, railhead it to a shipping yard, put it in a ship, send it across the ocean to the other side of the world, where it is made into steel by China, then it's put back on a boat, brought back over here over half the circumference of this planet, and it's somehow cheaper than just making it here.
Yes, because China basically uses slave labor. They pay pennies on the dollar. That would be why, Terrence. In order to compete with China, you would have to, again, treat American workers like absolute trash. What's up? Oh.
Who the fuck got bought off to even do that? I mean,
Politicians were paid off by the capitalists, you know, like Donald Trump, the guy that you think is going to fix this problem, when people like him and he himself were the people paying off the politicians to do this stuff. Like, as much as you rallied against Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump donated to Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. All rich people do this. It's why we need to get money out of politics.
I mean, where in the crazy equation of logic does that even make sense? Okay, Trump is like, no, fuck that. That's insane. That's got to stop. And, you know, we're seeing a lot of those industries start to come back.
Based on what? Other than the fact that you've heard that said on Fox News, what do you think is showing that those jobs are coming back? Where in your city is there a steel mill that didn't exist 4 years ago? The fact that you're not providing any sources tells me that these, again, are just your feelings. You feel this way. Fox News says it's good, so my feelings say it's good. You're wrong. Unemployment is the highest it's been in decades right now. I understand that you make decisions entirely based on your feelings because you're a Republican, and that's basically all you people are capable of doing, but just once in your life, please learn to look things up. Learn to look up statistics and charts, and look at those first before you form an opinion.
It's the same thing with the car companies. Why is it the big three basically moved a large portion of their manufacturing down to Mexico?
Because, again, labor prices are cheaper there, and capitalists want to spend as little money as possible producing their products because it raises their profit margin. So if you would like companies to stop thinking about profits first, then you need to put in all sorts of regulations. Or alternatively, we try and create a system where labor can move as freely as capital. Because in a system where capital can move freely, but labor cannot, it basically becomes a game of economic musical chairs, where every few decades there becomes a new developing area of the world where capitalists are going to go and find people to exploit as slave labor. It's not sustainable.
Because I remember when that started happening in the 80s and early to mid 90s when that was going on. That the big three was actually having people train their replacements in Mexico, and then they would get laid off, and that's it for them. Okay, that's insane. That whole NAFTA thing that was basically negotiated in the past was bullshit. In my opinion, that needs to go away.
Yeah, it should have included free movement of labor, similar to the EU. And I know that's gonna freak people on the right out. Like, oh my god, are you saying you're gonna let Hispanic people into my country? Yes. Yep. And then if the jobs move to Mexico, move there and go get a job. And they'll have to pay you a decent wage. You know why? Because if the job market's shit in Mexico and you get paid pennies on the dollar there, then you move to America. The USA. Of course, we're talking about North America here. Or Canada. That's why you need, if you have free movement of capital, free movement of labor.
But that's just me. I'm not going to tell you my level of economics is anywhere near the mind of a billionaire who's done it his whole life.
This is a problem too. Assuming that people, because they have a bunch of money, are smart, that's an American problem. Donald Trump has shown himself time and time again, almost every day, to be an absolute idiot. But the fact that he is considered a billionaire makes dumb people go, well, he must be smart, he has so much money. No. No. You don't need to be smart to have money. You just need to have money and have people around you who can take that money and turn it into more money. Again, I said this at the beginning, but if Donald Trump had taken the money his father bequeathed him upon his death and put it into a mutual fund, he'd have more money today than the investments that he made, which means the market on average beat him in terms of predictive gains, right? The guy's not a good businessman.
Life. So I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But hopefully it has been somewhat corrected when he renegotiated the whole new, contract, because in my opinion that was some epic level bullshit. Okay, now with this whole pandemic, which in my opinion is somewhat manufactured.
Terrence, 175,000 people are dead, and that's just in the United States. Let's see the global fucking toll. Global COVID deaths. Global COVID deaths. That's in my county. That's not what I want. Worldwide, almost 800,000 people have died around the globe, Terrence. You absolute moron. It's a global pandemic. It's not even just a thing in the United States. Do you think every country around the world got together and said, "Aha! It's time to create a fake virus to change the outcome of an American presidential election"? And every doctor around the planet was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good plan." People like Terrence shouldn't have a platform. They are too stupid in order to form coherent, reasonable opinions.
And because it does have a 99.7% survival rate, unless you're older than 75 years old and have comorbid.
The death rate in my county was 10% for people with confirmed cases of COVID. I don't know if it still is, but last time I checked a couple months ago, that's what it was.
Morbidities, then it can get quite fatal for you. But,
it's over 10 times more deadly than the flu, just for the record.
Before that happened, you can search this for yourself. But the economy was coming.
Why would people search it when you clearly didn't do any research? Again, you're just repeating things you heard on Fox News and acting like you're informed.
Back with a vengeance. The unemployment rate for the minorities of this country was the lowest it had ever been since they started keeping track of that statistic. And no one saying anything about it. You can search all these results yourself. I'm not going to really, go through the whole list because it is long. But, it's just crazy to me that he has actually turned our economy.
How's the unemployment rate now, Terrence? The worst it's been since the Great Depression? Cool.
Around, and it was doing great up until this whole craziness started. And the left and the Democrats just gloss right over that because it's terrible now.
Yeah. Terrence. We're living now? We don't get to live last year? We're now. Do you understand how that works? We now, Terrence. We now.
Well, it's kind of being manufactured.
You have no evidence of that, Terrence. Again, please stop repeating shit you've read on Breitbart.
I read the news and I look at my news feeds and I know what propaganda looks like, so I know what to disregard. And
apparently you don't. You literally spent like a couple minutes in this video talking about Benghazi, so gonna say your ability to point out propaganda, not that great.
You know, it is what it is. In fact, in regards to this whole
Baja Blast says right now the death rate of COVID cases is 5% in Michigan, or no, 5% in my county and 6% in Michigan, which is very high. Terrence said it's like 99 point something percent. Nope. 6% in Michigan are dying if you get it.
chloroquine thing, or hydrochloroquine that...
Are you seriously, again, quoting this thing that's been debunked multiple times that Trump said? Trump also said you should inject yourself with light and bleach. Are you gonna quote that next, Terrence, you absolute moron?
You know, Trump said was, you know, a possible, you know, miracle cure or treatment for this. Did you know that in 2005, Fauci himself wrote an article stating that chloroquine was a treatment/vaccine for the coronavirus?
Terrence, you understand there are different coronaviruses, and this one didn't exist until 2019? You absolute moron. Not the coronavirus. A coronavirus.
You didn't know that, did you? Well, he did. And there's a whole lot of studies out there stating that
Does he think that coronavirus has been around for like 20 years? No, you idiot. A coronavirus is a kind of virus. We call it coronavirus colloquially, but the reason we call it COVID-19 is because it's a specific coronavirus that was discovered in 2019. You can't just compare it to other coronaviruses. Jesus, this guy's an idiot.
the death rate is a lot lower for people who use the drug, with vitamin C and zinc.
The studies actually haven't shown that. They've told people, please don't take this. There's risks, and it's not going to help you.
Than if they don't, especially if they get it early. Because from what I'm reading, it's the first 7 to 10 days that will determine how bad you're going to get it and if you're going to live or die. Okay, because this virus has a way of basically tricking and shutting down your immune system for that length of time. And then the virus gets a toehold and a foothold in your body, and then your body's playing catch up to get rid of it. And if you're young, you can do that. When you're older, you can't, because it's called Darwin and survival of the fittest, and older people
You're also misunderstanding what survival of the fittest means, Terrence.
are not the fittest. That's just the truth.
That's not what survival of the fittest means, Terrence. God, you're stupid. Survival of the fittest means that, hey, if you have an advantage as a species, you are more likely to survive than another species that doesn't have it. It's not talking about individuals in the species. It's not talking about, like, old people versus young people. Like, even within one species, let's say someone has a mutation within a species that's beneficial. They are more likely to survive and reproduce than others within that species, and that mutation will probably become prevalent within the species if it is beneficial within, a certain number of generations. It's not about old people dying because their immune systems are compromised. Stop saying words when you don't know what they mean.
Truth. You can, nuke me in the comments. I don't care. It is what it is. Here's another big thing, and why I voted for him in 2016, other than the fact he was a Republican, is I knew he was not part of the status quo. Okay, now I
found a monkey throwing poop at the walls and smearing it all over himself at the zoo, and I just knew I wanted to vote for him for president, because I've never seen a politician smear poop all over themselves. Good argument.
a lot of the backlash to him that's being fueled mainly from the left is because he was a threat to the money.
He's a threat to you and your life, Terrence. He's a threat to the rights of not only myself, but tons of other minority communities, whether it be people in the LGBTQ community, whether it be people in racial minorities, whether it be women. I understand you're a white, straight dude, so you don't care, but if you have a little bit of empathy and maybe consider the fact that other people exist in this country with you, and you should care about their lived experience, that'd be great.
Okay, he was a direct threat to the way Washington was operating, and they didn't want that to take place. I mean, the whole Russia collusion thing.
Trump has literally used the office of the president to enrich himself and his own companies. The thing that you're saying he's stopping. Donald Trump makes Secret Service pay to rent space in the Trump Tower. That's government money that gets funneled directly into his accounts. We have him taking people to his resort, his club in Florida. People go there to spend time with the president. That gives him money. The Secret Service has to set up shop there too because he's there all the time. That makes him money.
Which turned out to be a nothing burger. It was investigated 3 or 4 times. And
so shouldn't that apply to Benghazi? Because Benghazi was literally investigated for years and absolutely no wrongdoing was found. Or do you not agree with that because you just don't like Hillary Clinton and your feelings are telling you otherwise? It's almost like you shouldn't use your feelings to create political opinions.
And there's nothing there. In fact, they even said that because he didn't want to participate in his own witch hunt, he was covering it up.
Hey, Terrence, did you read the Mueller report? It literally said, yeah, there was collusion, but they don't believe that the Department of Justice has the right to indict a sitting president. Remember how Flynn got indicted, and then there was another person mentioned that should have been indicted, but wasn't? That individual one was Trump. If Trump gets out of office, there's a good chance he'll be indicted because he'll no longer be the president. And again, recently, just in the past week, a Senate investigation report, again on the Russian interference thing, came back and said the same thing. The Trump campaign illegally colluded with Russia. They've also done all sorts of other illegal things. Bannon, for instance, taking money that people were donating to build the wall and embezzling it. Every single one of Trump's campaign managers has been indicted. Any comment on that? Or are you just going to pretend that doesn't exist?
Well, last I heard or read, you have the right to remain silent. If the left wins...
You have the right to not incriminate yourself. So what you're saying is that if Donald Trump came and spoke to a committee that he would self-incriminate, you have the right to not self-incriminate, but if the police subpoena you and say you need to come talk to us, you still need to show up. You can have a lawyer who can coach you, but at the end of the day, if you get subpoenaed or if you're being investigated for a crime, you don't have the right to not show up for the investigation.
That's probably going to go out the window. Well, over my dead body, quite literally, but...
With social distancing regulations in effect all over the country, you can't spend all day on Pornhub. So in between those fapping sessions, expand your mind with Uncle Nick. A 30-something bachelor in the jizz-soaked shores of California, he's probably the only guy left there who hasn't banged Amy Horton. His panache for public intoxication makes him the perfect redonkulous companion during this quarantine. Because you wouldn't want to be seen with this guy outside of your home, even if you could. Download your copy on Amazon today. A link is in the description.
There you have
That book sounds
my
awful.
4 main reasons. Now we're going to look over here to some of the cons, and why a lot of people don't seem to like them. It's not on the list here, but the left keeps calling him some kind of racist.
Yes, he is.
If you look at the list of awards that Trump was given in his life, a lot of them are from minority groups.
Donald Trump was literally successfully sued in the 70s for discriminatory renting practices. Do you not remember that? You know, the whole Central Park 5 thing, where he was calling for the death sentence of, like, 5 black youths who were then later found to be not guilty. And even to this day, he's like, no, they were guilty. Remember when he came down that escalator and announced his presidency? And he said that everyone coming from Mexico are rapists and murderers? Remember all those? Remember when Charlottesville happened and Heather Heyer was murdered by a white supremacist, and Donald Trump said that there were very good people on both sides, including the people who were marching with tiki torches and chanting blood and soil, which is literally a thing the Nazis said? I remember
supporting their causes and so forth. Okay, especially the Jewish community. They are...
Trump can't be racist. He likes Jewish people. Okay? And you cannot be racist towards one group and be racist towards other groups. Especially, like, in this particular case, when just by looking at someone, you really can't really tell if they're, like, Jewish or not. So...
huge on people who are...
He likes taco bowls, idiot. True. Is Jake streaming? I know you're here. If so, I'm gonna be done in a minute once I'm done with this video. Where the heck did it go?
Are
oh, no?
racist and anti-Semites. I mean, and they are not going to cough up these huge honorary awards to him if he had a history of doing that shit. In fact, you really can't find claims of him being a racist before he decided to run for the office.
Let's see. Donald Trump. Racial slurs. People on The Apprentice. People on The Apprentice basically said he uses the N-word on the set. We also have Donald Trump, discrimination in housing case. United States versus Fred C. Trump. Donald Trump and Trump management. This is from, is there a date on this? 1975, which is quite a bit before he ran for president if you don't know how time works. And he was successfully sued for discriminatory housing practices. So, hey, Terrence, if you could maybe Google something before you say stupid shit, that'd be great.
As a president. And then everyone got on board and started going crazy. So I didn't put that on here as the con because I really don't see it. Now, a lot of people say, well, he's a liar and he tells a lot of fibs.
Yeah, that's not a good thing to have in a politician, someone who lies all the time. And of course, we all know, like, oh, ha, 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 politicians lie. It's the common joke. But I don't think I've heard Donald Trump say an honest statement in his entire 4-year presidency. I wish I was being hyperbolic, but I don't remember the last time Trump said anything and I didn't at least go, that's a really weird hyperbolic way to put that. Right? Everything he says is just mind-bogglingly weird, stupid, or a lie. Jeez.
Not gonna tell you you're wrong. In fact, you're right. I can't defend it. It is what it is.
Wow, well, then that's it. You know what? Yeah, the president lies constantly, so whatever. Suck it, libs.
Number 2, he's a womanizer. All right.
I have a lot of problems with Trump, That's not one of them. I don't care if someone consensually involves themselves with people. That's not the issue. The problem with Trump isn't that he's a womanizer. The problem with Trump is that he's admitted on camera to assaulting women. That's not being a womanizer. That's being a rapist.
Can anyone out there in YouTube TV land tell me, if you didn't have $1 billion and all that power and fame at your disposal, that you wouldn't be a little bit of a womanizer?
I wouldn't. Tate, stop projecting how shitty of a person you are onto everyone else. And also, equivocating assaulting women with being a womanizer, because they're not the same thing.
Be honest now. It is what it is. Now, I personally don't even care about that. I don't care if there was a line of prostitutes around the block to the White House, going up to the back door, sucking his dick through a hole in the screen door. 24/7, 365, when he wasn't on the phone doing his job.
This is a complete straw man. This is not why people don't like Donald Trump. If we're talking about his sexuality, we're talking about the fact that he has assaulted women and has admitted to doing so.
Or playing golf. I don't care. I don't care. All right? That doesn't even register on my radar.
His first wife divorced him, and part of the thing she was divorcing him over was the fact that he raped her also, by the way, in case you didn't know that.
Radar at all. Okay? I don't care. And that whole thing, grabbing by the pussy thing. Locker room talk.
No. If the locker rooms... Here's a fun fact. If you go into a locker room and all the people in there are talking about how they like to grab women by the P word without consent, then you have a locker room full of rapists. Just so you know, in case you're ever, in earshot of this.
Whatever, that was so stupid. So another one, this is actually another fair criticism. He picked poor examples for his cabinet and advisors. All right.
All of his campaign managers have been indicted.
Right. So some of those guys in the early on were being investigated for serious crimes that took place like 5 to 10 years prior.
Question, what about all the crimes that they've been indicted for while working for the president? Because that's a lot of them. Tucker White, 24 with 100 bits. One of the few honest things Donald Trump has said as president is calling the press in this country, quote, fake news, though not for the reason liberals like myself would say.
To Trump even get elected? Did he even do...
Honestly, whenever anyone says something like, oh, it's just locker room talk, I automatically assume that person has assaulted someone. Like, if you hear what Trump said there, and your thought is, oh, just boys being boys, I assume you've assaulted women. Because clearly your frame of reference for what is okay and what is consensual is so far off base from reality. There's next to zero chance you haven't assaulted someone sexually. Like, it's fucking scary and baffling how many people in this country apparently think it's okay to just grab someone by the genitals.
Like a criminal background check or ask people if people were getting investigated. I mean, come on now. Come on. I mean, some of these people should not have been there in the beginning. All right? I'm just going to say that right now. That is a legitimate...
What about Michael Flynn, who's been Trump's lawyer for decades? He was also indicted. That's not like just a random hire. That's someone he's been working with for decades.
Con. Okay. Here's another thing. I mean, his show, he fired someone like every episode. He's fired a lot of people.
Okay. I don't think that's something people are criticizing him for. His acts on a reality show. If we're talking about the general idea that he's like a disgusting, capitalist who doesn't care about the well-being of his employees, that's fine. But no one doesn't understand that having a business in this country doesn't involve firing people sometimes.
I don't know if they had it coming or if they didn't have it coming. But I will say that if he gets elected for a second term, if it was me, there'd be a lot of motherfuckers who would get their walk-in papers.
Such
So,
as?
you know, the top, 5 to 3 tiers of the FBI, gone. Same thing for the NSA.
Literally talking about purging political enemies from government. You know, like Adolf Hitler did.
Gone. CIA, gone. A lot of the other organizations, gone.
It's always a good idea to remove the most competent intelligence officials in the country and fire them. That's usually a good idea. I'm sure that wouldn't cripple our information sector of the government whatsoever.
Okay, that would clear up a lot of that bullshit that's taken place with the corruption of individuals who are appointed or working in bureaucratic jobs.
Oh no, the president's being investigated for illegal things that he's done. The corruption for investigating him is clearly more important than the corruption he actively engaged in.
It's unexcusable. They need to be fired.
Oh, sorry, Michael Cohen, not Flynn. Apologies.
All right, another one here.
There's been a lot of bad people in this administration. I'm getting my wires crossed.
Does not act presidential. Let me get this straight here.
He barely acts like, I say barely, he doesn't even act like a reasonable adult, much less a president. I'm not even saying that acting presidential is like something that you need to be in order to be the president, but this is a complete understatement of what's going on. It's not that he doesn't act presidential, it's that he acts like a raving lunatic. Saying he doesn't act presidential is being incredibly generous. He acts like a giant man baby.
Does anyone think for a hot second that these individuals who've been put forward for the...
He's the best president I've ever had? Was I born literally in January of 2016? Fuck off.
The office of president in the past weren't picked for a certain reason? Can anyone tell me why a senator who had 2 to 3 years sitting in the seat as senator, i.e. Senator Obama, was nominated to be the president?
Because he was an incredibly competent politician, someone people could get behind. He was a graduate of Harvard Law School. He was had a degree in constitutional law. Yeah, that about covers it.
That happens because those individuals can be manipulated. I'm just going to say that right now.
I think you just don't like Obama. Gee, I wonder why you might not like Obama.
So when people say that Trump doesn't act presidential, they're absolutely correct. He was
The Chuds are real mad tonight.
real estate business owner prior to this. He wasn't handpicked for being able to be controlled.
It's not about being controlled. It's about being a reasonable adult, which Donald Trump is not.
So I'm not shocked that he's not really acting that presidential. And in regards, what does that actually mean, to act presidential? Could it be that you people out there have been, influenced to believe a certain way that the president is supposed to act? Could that be the case? Maybe you need to ask some questions and have them bounce around in your own brain pan for a while and get back to me. Okay, he's not a good public speaker. No, he is not. Okay, I'm not.
I don't think he's a good private speaker either. He speaks like someone with dementia.
Not going to make excuses for him. He's not a good public speaker. Now, that whole, what was it, when he talked about the disinfectant comment, he was actually referring to an ultraviolet treatment which has been used since, I think 1920 to treat various illnesses.
That's not what he said. Stop trying to go to bat and simp for Donald Trump when he just said something stupid. He said inject bleach and light into people. Stop trying to be like, actually, there's this treatment that uses UV light. even if Trump was saying use UV lights to kill a virus inside someone's bodies, that would be equally stupid. You cannot shine a UV light on someone so bright that it gets into their respiratory system. That's not better. That's still stupid. Do you get that?
This is of the blood, and that's where they put a tube in your arm, take your blood out, run it through, a channel which is exposed to ultraviolet light, and put it back in your body.
That wouldn't help. The virus is not only a blood-borne pathogen.
They've had a lot of success with that, especially in certain forms of blood cancer. I think it was septic shock.
Yes, I'm sure Donald Trump, as intelligent as we all hear him to be, was thinking, this treatment that's used for certain blood cancers and septic shock. No. Donald Trump heard someone say something about UV light being used to disinfect instruments or something, and his dumb dementia brain went, what if we inject light into your body and then we'll inject disinfectant? Jesus.
And other
Yeah, this is my last video.
other types of infections of the blood and so forth. So, at no time did they say drink bleach and so forth. That's just absolutely stupid.
I agree, it is stupid. Thanks for being on the same page as me.
That was completely cooked up by the media.
Don't believe what your lying eyes tell you. The media's lying to you about this direct quote we can show you Trump saying verbatim.
And anyone who thinks that, listen, you just need to, admit you're mentally weak. Because
you just spent 20 minutes talking about your fee-fees and things that you've heard on Fox News, and you're calling other people mentally weak? You have holes in your brain from the constant drinking, Terrence. Maybe take it down a notch with the judgment.
he never said that. That was pure propaganda, and you were played like a fiddle.
Don't believe your lying eyes and ears. Believe what the Ministry of Truth at Fox News tells you.
In fact, you were played like a Stradivarius. So just take it with a grain of salt. Okay, and last but not least, he's Twitter happy. Okay, now never in all of...
That's just an extension of what a man baby he is. I don't care if a president wants to use Twitter. That makes sense, right? Twitter is a platform that, millions of people use regularly to get news, to get in touch parasocially with, celebrities, with politicians. If a president wanted to use Twitter, that's great. Obama used Twitter somewhat, although I don't know if he personally used it. It was probably just, someone who managed it for him because he actually worked every day, as opposed to Trump, who does not. The problem is the way Trump uses Twitter. It's that he screams like a baby on it, and that he's constantly acting deranged.
Of human history, as a president, had instant access to...
Who's better, Bush or Trump? Yeah, I'm not doing that, friendo. I'm not gonna try and weigh one bag of shit against another, okay?
pretty much the entire United States from his smartphone. All right, now...
Krista Willow says Biden presidency is gonna be so boring. God, I hope so. I need at least 4 years of not fucking waking up every morning scared of what I'm gonna read when I open my phone. Oh God, what did he do now? Could finally take a breather.
Now, I've read some of his tweets. I would say half of them probably unnecessary. 30% of them, they're okay, and the rest of them were good.
The good ones were probably the ones that were written by someone other than Donald Trump, because he does occasionally have staffers do tweets for him.
But, it is what it is.
You can tell because there's better spelling and less use of random capitalization.
Now, with all of this craziness that's going on with the social media like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, I have no idea why he hasn't moved to a lot of the new alt-tech platforms.
Because no one uses them. and he doesn't know they exist because almost no one does.
Because the minute that happens, a lot of people are going to go to the alt tech platforms and they're going to become instantly legitimate overnight, just like that. Like Parler and Gab, you know, and there's Bradion and BitChute.
The second Donald Trump tries to go to any of these, can you imagine the news articles about Trump going to literal neo-Nazi hives to go and spread his message? Random invite with 25 bits. Biden's campaign heads are signaling austerity measures already. If you think a Biden presidency is going to be boring, you're not paying attention to the details. He's already trying to slip out of his campaign platform. I won't be ashamed to be an American, though. I've said this before and I'll say it again. The day, if Biden gets put into the presidency, we can bully him all day and night and try and get him to hold up his end of the deal in terms of trying to be a left-sided candidate. Until such a time, fucking vote for Biden. He's still the better choice. Stephen J. Neptune Man says, Biden's presidency will be boring to the general public, but BreadTube and left-wing news sites will be keeping their eye on them. Oh yeah, I'll have plenty of stuff to talk about if Biden wins, and so will Jake and everyone else, but like, at least I won't worry if the president's going to launch a nuke randomly for some stupid reason. And I cannot believe we're at a point where I'm literally worrying about that. I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, any day, Trump could just get some weird inkling and launch a nuke, and it wouldn't surprise me.
Let's see, Library, DTube. There's just like half a dozen more. I'm on most of them already, but, you know, I don't know why he doesn't do that. And another thing I don't know is why isn't, like, going and revoking the protections that a lot of these large media platforms exist, because they have a monopoly because they're looked upon as platforms, but they're operating.
They don't have a monopoly. You already mentioned multiple platforms. There's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's Snapchat, there's YouTube. There's all the other ones you mentioned. They're not monopolies. They're all social media sites. Thank you, Blue Fox 805 for following.
As publishers. I don't know why he hasn't done anything about that yet. Maybe if he gets
It's almost like he doesn't have the legal power to do anything about it. Weird.
elected again, we'll see. But, you know, I mean, we're between a rock and a hard place. I mean, we have two bad, I want to say bad choices. We have a less than ideal choice and an absolute terrible choice. Now, with his track record for, you know, going against China and fixing the economy, I can overlook a lot of shit because that needs to happen for this country to move forward into the future. And
so all these made-up bullshit reasons that I already went over why you're wrong about, that forgives assaulting women, lying constantly, being a dipshit. Really? All the crime? Great. You're nailing it, Terrence.
Actually survive, you know, economically. Okay? Because if it keeps going on, we are going to collapse. It's going to turn into a chaotic bloodbath, and, you know, we're going to get carved up by some of the other powers, and we will cease to exist. Right? That's just a prediction that I'm making. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope this, you know, it is what it is, but what are you going to do? Anyway, that's me. I've been rambling on long enough, so take it easy.
God. You know, twofold. Firstly, like I said, I hope Biden wins, specifically because while there are going to be problems with a Biden presidency if he wins, and those are things that we can address if and when we get there, it's still going to be so much better. But a good, like, bonus on top of it, can you imagine the salt out of people like Terrence and all these people I talk about if Donald Trump got beaten by Joe Biden? one of the most milquetoast, grandpa-y candidates ever to grace the ballot for President of the United States. That would be fantastic, quite honestly.